Hey guys, so if you missed it, yesterday I posted a top 5 SFF reads of 2016, my top 5 favorites, and today I'm going to be talking about my top 5 audiobooks of 2016. And like I said in the top SFF video, there were some audiobooks in there, but this one is more about the audiobook experience, just audiobook experiences that I really enjoyed for whatever reason, whether it be just that they translate really well to an audiobook, whether it be the narrator and stuff like that. I really enjoyed the experience of listening to these audiobooks, and I think listening to the audiobook for sure enhanced my enjoyment of the book itself, where the book was likely better for me because I listened to it. And like in the other top 5, these are not necessarily books that were released in 2016, just the things that I personally listened to and that I really enjoyed. So without further ado, go ahead and get into it. The first is a series, and I've read 4 of the series so far, and that is the Dresden Files. I don't think I would enjoy these books nearly as much if I was not listening to them. They are so much fun, mostly because of James Marsters' narration. He is a great narrator for this. For me, he is Harry Dresden. He is the main character, and I cannot imagine anyone else being him and being his voice. This follows a wizard. He's the only wizard in the phone book. When you look up wizard, he's the only one there. He takes on clients that generally don't necessarily know whether they want to believe or not that he is a wizard, but he does take on clients, and generally each book has some sort of mystery added to it, but also deals with his kind of backstory, his background as a wizard, and the mythical creatures / just fantasy creatures in general that he kind of encounters in his daily life, like vampires and werewolves and fairies and stuff like that. And it's a wonderful, fun, enthusiastic urban fantasy series that I very highly recommend. I'll be talking about it quite a bit more this year in 2017. I've talked about them all in weekly wrap-ups before, but I'll keep talking about them in weekly wrap-ups as the year goes on, because I plan on trying to read the rest of the series and get caught up with it throughout this year. And they're still coming out. There's like 15 of them or 16 of them right now. And I've heard many things about even like the later books. I keep hearing that they just get better and better, and that Jim Butcher did a really great job of planning out the series as a whole. There are things that happen in the earlier books that really come into play not until later on in the series, and you kind of see that, and you don't get to see some of these things come to fruition until later on in the series, and I really enjoy that, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that play out. Next is a YA series that I listened to. I listened to the whole thing this year, all 4 books in it, and that is The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. This was narrated by Will Patton, and I don't think I would have enjoyed these nearly as much if I didn't listen to them. I think his narration added so much to them. His narration just added so much to the character voices and who they came across as people that I don't think I would have enjoyed them as characters as much as I did, and I think the characters, really are what made me enjoy the books as much as I did. I loved their friendship. It's about this girl named Blue, she's in a family of psychics, but she's the only not psychic, and she's been told by these psychics in her family all her life that if she kisses her true love will die. And that premise sounded completely ridiculous to me when I first heard of this, and I was hesitant going into this whether I would like it or not. But it has some really redeemable qualities. I actually really liked the romances in this book. I really liked all the plots of each individual book and the different fantastical elements that are introduced in each book. There's a lot of really interesting things going on surrounding something this group of friends is trying to find, specifically like the leader of this group of friends named Richard Gansey. I feel like much of the series is very dreamlike, and the way things are described, it has this very ethereal quality to it, and to the things that happen, and to the fantastical things that happen, and I very much enjoyed them. I mean, they're not my favorite things ever, but the enjoyment level of the audiobooks was very high, and I very highly recommend listening to them. Next is another series. I've read all of them. I read all of them this year except for the first one. I read the first one at the end of 2015. But in 2016, I read the other 5, and that is the Dublin Murder Squad books by Tana French. Now, this is another situation where I'm not sure if I would have loved them as much as I did if I hadn't listened to the audiobooks. Each audiobook is actually narrated by different narrators. The first book has these 2 characters, and then the second book follows this one character from that first book, and then the third book follows another character, and the fourth book follows some other characters, and then they keep following different characters, so they need different narrators, but each narrator just adds so much to the character that they're narrating for, that the story is told from. And I feel like she has a great sensibility for writing these different characters, giving them very unique voices, and putting them into these unique mysteries. And some of them are better than others. The second one and the fourth one, I think, are my two favorites, definitely the best out of all six. And I think the fifth one is probably my least favorite. And the first one maybe is kind of tied with like the third and the sixth one. So they're all very good, and they all have very good narrators, and they all follow different murder mysteries surrounding the Dublin Murder Squad and different detectives in the Dublin Murder Squad. And if you like mysteries and you haven't read these yet, then you should really give them a shot and try to read them in order. You don't necessarily have to, and I've seen some people read them out of order, which is fine, I guess, but I feel like I got more enjoyment out of them from reading them in order because you get to see different characters show up in different ways in order. Like, I can't imagine that I would have been quite as connected to the second one if I hadn't read the first one first. So I would highly suggest reading them in order and definitely listening to them as opposed to just reading them physically, although I do own some of them physically, and I do plan on reading them physically later on to try and... I want to read actually a lot of the books that I'm listening to physically at some point later on in the future to kind of gauge my enjoyment level without the audiobook. I'll probably do that for most of my favorite audiobooks that I've listened to, try to read them physically and see what the difference in my enjoyment levels are. But yeah, I would love if you read these if you like murder mysteries. Next is another series, 2 books in a series that I read. I actually talk about them in my SFF top 5, and I could not include them in this as well, and that is Free the Darkness and Reign of Madness by Kel Kay, the 2 books that are currently out in King's Dark Tidings. They're fantastic, and Nick Podell does an amazing job narrating these. His narration, I cannot imagine reading Reskin, the main character Reskin, not from Nick Podell's narration. There's just so many moments in these books that just kind of make my jaw drop and make me feel just like that was freaking awesome, just because of the way Nick Podell narrated. I mean, it's because of the way it was written too, but it just translates so well to his narration that I could not include it in this. I did talk about that a little bit more in yesterday's top 5 SFF, so go watch that if you want to know more, and also just go watch my review of Free the Darkness. I did a full review of that first book, and it's gotten some good feedback, and I would really love it if you gave this series a shot, because the third book comes out this year, and I will definitely be talking about that when it comes out. So, and the very last thing I want to talk about in this video is Dawn of Wonder by Jonathan Renshaw. This is another situation kind of like Kel Kay's King's Dark Tidings, which was first self-published and then picked up by Podium Publishing for audiobook and then published on Audible. And I'm very, very happy that Podium Publishing is doing stuff like this. I found so many awesome looking audiobooks through Podium Publishing on Audible. Please go look them up. Look up some of the stuff that they've been releasing this past year, and you will find, I'm sure you'll find something that looks really cool in science fiction and fantasy, because I have like a ton of stuff on my wish list now from them, and I just downloaded like 5 new audiobooks from them because they all just sounded so interesting. I'm definitely going to be talking about those more, about that publishing company a lot more as the year goes on. So anyway, so Dawn of Wonder, I did talk about this in a few weekly wrap-ups, and I will be doing a full review of this. It's not quite out yet, but please look out for that full review because I'm going to go in depth about why I like it. And it's a very long audiobook. It's 30 hours long, and it's a lot of fun. It is so much fun. It follows this kid named Aiden, who is very young when we first meet him, but he's smart, he's adventurous, he's tactful, and he knows what he's doing a lot of the time, but he's not perfect in any way. He's a kid. He doesn't know what he's doing entirely, but he does his best, and you get to see his progression. You get to see a lot of his progression. It's not necessarily slow, but you do see a lot of events as they happen. It doesn't really skim over anything. We get to see a lot of his adventures from start to finish as he goes through the book. And I will talk more about the plot in my review, but it's basically about this kid whose town is invaded by slavers, and someone he really cares about is taken away by them, and he kind of wants to go and get revenge on them. So he ends up being a part of the marshals. He ends up being a part of this martial academy where he is trained, and it doesn't have a very specific plot. It kind of meanders in and out of different plots and different things, and kind of goes just from one thing to the next. It's kind of that kind of book where it just goes through different life events and different situations and doesn't necessarily have a huge arc. But towards the end, it does kind of have a climax and an ending arc. But as a whole, it does not necessarily have much in the way of what you can call like a specific plot, which I actually really enjoyed because I loved just hearing about what he was doing. I loved seeing his growth. I loved seeing the different situations that he was put in. And I think it honestly makes it more enjoyable that you just kind of get to see his life as it unfolds. It's narrated by Tim Gerard Reynolds, who is easily my favorite narrator of all time. He narrates all of the audiobooks, and he's narrated a few other things that I listen to. And I'm going to be listening to everything as much as I possibly can, everything that I'm interested in that he's narrated, I'm going to be listening to. Especially this year, I would love to listen to more of his narrations. But he has such great voice for characters. I can't imagine them listening to Aiden from a different voice. And just, he makes it so much fun. His audiobooks are easily some of the most fun, and a lot of that does have to do with the writing. Again, the author, Jonathan Renshaw, his writing is a lot of fun. It's really nice in a lot of ways. But Tim Gerard Reynolds always, for me, makes a book 10 times more fun than it could have been originally. At least that's my opinion. I genuinely feel coming out of Tim Gerard Reynolds books, like I just had so much fun listening to it. So that is all of my top 5 for audiobook experiences this year. I would love to hear if you've had any similar great experiences listening to audiobooks this year. I would love to know just what your favorites have been this past year, and if you've listened to any of the ones that I talked about, and if you agree or disagree, I would love to know about that as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you later with more.